All right, welcome back again to SecureAuth What is an IDP webinar today. I'd like to go through the participants, and Garrett, if you can give me the controls to click the slides, I can go down to the next slide. Thank you. Welcome to the webinar presented by SecureAuth. Today we're going to have Garrett Grajek, SecureAuth Corporation's founder and CTO, Chris Hayes, Senior Sales Engineer of SecureAuth, and myself, John Colas, our VP of Worldwide Sales. For the purpose of the webinar, all attendee audio lines will be muted. We will allow questions, and questions can be answered at the end of the session, so please submit your brief questions to the Q&A panel on the right side of the webinar interaction screen. If you have longer questions or offline topics, please send questions via email to webinar@gosecureauth.com. Well, let's get started. So what does SecureAuth do? Well, SecureAuth helps companies become their own identity provider. Now, before we get into what an IDP is or what it does, let's take a moment to discuss why a company might need an IDP. So, for those who've been in the business quite a while, 2005 was a good year for most everybody before the downturn. We've had enterprise users log in with one device, one password, a few applications, some of those internal. Usually a desktop or a laptop was issued, okay? And really, all we were concentrated on security were perimeter device, firewalls, intrusion detection, intrusion protection, virus, things like that. Well, it's 2012 now, and what are we dealing with today? Well, we have many more IDs, many more devices, many more passwords, many applications. We deal with access into cloud, network, mobile applications. We have Box.net, Google, Workday, Salesforce.com. We still deal with legacy, Oracle, SharePoint, WebSphere. And now we have the iPhone 5 and Android and the Nexus 7. BYOD is now the forefront in our minds of how do we get these folks to get access to. Well, that is an issue, and so what we want to do is discuss what would be the benefit to provide access to these devices and use cases by becoming an identity provider. First and foremost, we can leverage our existing policies, profiles, and procedures to the cloud, to the mobile, to the web, and network. And this just not deals with the employees. This can be a B2B and a B2C scenario. And what we're allowing folks to do is get access to all of this you see on the right. And again, these are different applications, enterprise applications, gateway applications. We've got mobile applications that are developed off of iPhone. We've got the traditional cloud applications. These are different use cases. And when SecureAuth goes into an account, oftentimes we get called on a very tactical response. I want to replace my multi-factor authentication solution. I want single sign-on. And when we peel back the layers, we ask more questions to figure out what you're really trying to do and what are the real use cases that you're trying to solve. And we get down to the level of it. We've got all these complexities with 2012 and what we have to deal with today. And so we devised SecureAuth IdP to handle just these use cases. So to get more into what an IDP is, I'd like to reintroduce Garrett Grajek. He is our CTO and co-founder of SecureAuth to further define IDP and how SecureAuth can help.
Perfect.
Garrett?
Thanks, JK. Something real important here is when we founded this thing back in 2005, the objective was not to create a new term, which we didn't create the term, it's been around, but to basically prophesize a new term to help people pass their CISSPs. The point was to meet these, to get users, these are your users, to the cloud, to your network, to your web, and to your mobile that meets what? Your policies, profiles, and procedures. What we're talking about there is your PCI DSS, your NCUA, your HIPAA, your high tech, your FFIEC. How are you going to meet those guidelines in this world where your resources are everywhere, and as JK started with, your actual devices are everywhere? That's why you need an IDP, and that's why this architecture makes sense. Just FYI, this ain't our definition. This is off of MIT. But started long back at RSA and IBM, and this term was used all the time with the sense of what? Here is your resource. Your resource is X. It is Google. It is Salesforce. It is Taleo. I named Cloud Apps. But it also could be F5. It could be Juniper. It could be whatever gateway device you have, or it could be what? It could be the actual app, the J2E app, the WebLogic, the WebSphere, the Drupal. What you want to do is to abstract the authentication. And we'll show you that how important it is because regulation changes. The new HIPAA requirements is now going to add two-factor, the way PCI DSS did back in 2006, to remote access to healthcare information. Okay, if you've got a rigid system, how do you all of a sudden implement two-factor? If you implement this system where you're the IDP and this is the resource and your user comes to you first and you construct the authentication, you're good to go. Why? Because the IDP sends an attribute assertion. You're going to hear another voice on it. You're going to hear the SE voice of Chris Hayes, and he's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about this step, number 3, where he asserts the identity after doing a quantifiable authentication. So let me take it through one more way and explain this. We call this the identity funnel slide, where the user, go back to this slide, here's a user. He is starting the authentication equation somewhere, and that's it. Us as IT guys, we have to do all the use cases of somewhere. What is a somewhere? I came to work. I'm on the Kerberos system, the IWA domain. I'm not at work. I'm off the domain. I have to go through the VPN. I'm coming from another portal. Okay, that's what we call the identity funnel. We start here and say your user could come from one of these use case scenarios. It could come from a browser, could come from a Kerberos domain, IWA, could come from something as fun as a pre-existing X509. The SE on the line, Chris, has done a lot of work out in the federal sector taking what? CAC and PIV cards. So we consume the identity in the IDP structure. Great. Now what we do is we take that identity and we map it to your directory. Your directory is key to this, to the whole equation. You'll see we're going to assert users out to 4 different vectors down here. But what's relevant is I can't assert that user to any resource if I don't do the authorization and group policies here off of your AD, off of your LDAP, off of your ODBC, or even a REST or web service call to an off-premise directory. Once that's done, now we have quantified 1, the identity, 2, that he maps to your directory in some type of authorization. Now we can dictate, and this is important, the proper authentication at this time, at this user, for his role. That could change in an hour. That's what an IDP is about. You redirect it back, you control what the authentication, and if you're a true IDP, you should be as flexible as possible in the authentication. If you're rigid in that, you aren't solving all the problems. And I mean rigid like handing out a token. I was once an RSA SE. I deployed hundreds and hundreds of SecureID A servers. Those things are always A servers. That's what they do. Okay? They're always going to authenticate a token. How do you say, great, I need to scale this app to a 6 to 7 user count B2C application? How are you going to do that with tokens? But if you're redirecting back to yourself, the IDP, you can pick a more flexible authentication. In our system, and I'll spell them out in a second, we have 9 different ways of authenticating. Okay, let's regroup. We got the identity. He came from a browser, came from a domain, came from a CAC card. We authorized them. We now did some quantifiable authentication. Could be ID password, could be ID password plus cert, could be ID password plus cert plus out of band, SMS telephony. We actually have users doing 4-factor. Now is the money round. Let's assert the identity. First we log it. So meet your PCI, meet your NCA, meet that. We log it to a syslog server or our own server, which you can run reports on. And then we have 4 different ways we can assert it, 4 different mechanisms. So let me clean this up to articulate this better. We can assert it out to a gateway device, your F5, your Juniper, your Cisco, your Citrix, etc. Nothing wrong with that. Those are fantastic gateway devices for identity. If you're going to be an IDP, work directly with those pre-existing mechanisms and pass the identity, because they have fantastic SSO mechanisms built in. Let's collaborate with them. Or enterprises are saying, Garrett, we don't want to run the traffic through a proxy. Can't you send the IDP identity directly to the web application? Yes. Yes. By definition, an IDP is sending out a web token. So the answer is yes. But what's really fun, and this is how we get into the podiums and all that kind of stuff, is we, out of that 2-factor, out of that equation, can straight out send the ID to a SaaS service. We got a few listed here, but it's infinite. If they can take an identity token or even a post from our product, we can get them out there and then give them a single sign-on into the SaaS service. Google, Salesforce, Telio, Workday, Concur. Yes. And where we're really exploding it, and it's really getting fun, is our IDP is unique on planet Earth because it can send the identity to your native mobile app without rooting or putting a client on a mobile app. How is that done? Just watch some of our other videos. It's amazing. Or join us next week in the MobileCon down in San Diego. We got full free trials and everything for this. The point of the product is this. It's flexible. I'm going to take your identities. I'm going to do a flexible authorization off of your identity tours. I'm going to do a flexible authentication, and then I'm going to do a flexible assertion to your relying party. And I can do this again and again because the product's multi-tenanted. Okay, so let me just lay out exactly that's what an IDP does. I'm going to lay out exactly what SecureAuth IdP. And if you hear another voice jump in, that's be Chris helping me in some of the details here. Right, Chris?
Absolutely.
All good. So, Chris, when you go in and do a deployment, you set this product up, you set it in your enterprise, and then you talk to you. You say, what type of authentication do you want to do for this realm, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's really unique about SecureAuth and makes us totally unique in the marketplace, and such a compelling reason and product to use for these SaaS and internal applications, is what Garrett walked you through on the last slide and what he's showing you through right here. We are the only product that can take one URL. All these cloud applications that we're talking about, just about every other application, when you want to offload authentication, we are the only product that can take one URL and then decide based upon the risk of where that user's come in from, if we want to leave it single sign-on for internal users, or if we want to step it up, like Garrett says right here, to whatever you want to say. When I'm dealing with federal customers, yes, let's use your CAC. Let's use the pin off that CAC and a password that ties back into Active Directory. Or let's use a knowledge-based question. Anything that we want. This is very easy for us to configure.
Perfect. And just itemize them for the team out there. We take that realm, and what is the authentication? Could be KBA, KBQ, could be email, OTP, could be our own certificates that we deliver and authenticate, or it could be your own CAs. It could be a USB key. It could be SMS. It could be telephony. It could be the wonderful CAC and PIV cards, or another national identity card. It could be static PIN, or it could be password, or it could be Kerberos. All of these are up to you, and the cool thing is, the way this slide showed you back here, the design of an IDP is just have the user go to you before you assert them out to the relying party. Okay, just to quantify this, we're just going to step you through the 4 ways that we see this being done, and that's why Chris helps out here. We do deployments all the time here. For the IDP, communicates to the web level, or it can communicate to your gateway level, or it's communicating here at your SaaS level, or what's really having fun is take the mobile apps themselves. So let's just take them one at a time. The traditional way is the IDP, because it's constructing an identity assertion in some quantified format, SAML, OpenID, OpenID Connect, LTPA, FBA, or other mechanisms, headers, etc., we can, after the authenticate, communicate directly to these web resources. Anything you want to add there, Chris?
No, you're spot on here. We do not specifically have modules for application A, B, or C. Why is that? Because there's standards in the marketplace, and Garrett's done a great job here of telling you what those standards are. SAML, FBA, in future years it's going to be WS Fed, just anything that you want. The reason why you don't necessarily see maybe 1,000 different applications listed on our website as having authentication is because 900 plus of those all support standards-based authentication. There are standards out there in the marketplace, and that's what people use.
Perfect. But the traditional way, and it's an excellent way, is to have a gateway device. And you stop the identity and you do the enforcement right at the gateway. The Juniper, the Citrix, the F5, the Cisco. Fantastic. Once again, we do identity and authentication abstraction right there, and then our IdP product passes the identity to the gateway device, who can then provide SSO. Right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're above and beyond a standard two-factor replacement for something like a Juniper or an F5 or any other intelligent like Netscaler version 10. And Garrett's speaking directly to that. When we work in conjunction with these VPNs, we're very collaborative. Not only are we validating identities using strong two-factor authentication, but we can also stand behind that same gateway and provide all of our authentication brokerage services to the services that are behind that VPN.
Perfect. And then, the fun part is, hey, I'm an enterprise, I got a directory, I want to use these IDs, but I want my users to be able to log in to these SaaS services. And that's been this exploding place for our product, and it's literally become where people think what an IDP only does, which is cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. This is a solid part of our market, but it is a subset of what we do, and we do it excellent. And you want to put any color in that, Chris?
Yeah, no, it's we've just taken all four of these things here that you've walked through here so far. I know you haven't hit number 4, which is mobile applications here, and that's one of the biggest differentiators about SecureAuth as an IdP and someone else that just provides us a total SaaS application.
Yeah, and what we support there is we talked about before, send an identity assertion out here, be it SAML 1.1, SAML 2.0, OpenID, OpenID Connect, or even a post from here, which we work with the vendors that aren't supporting the Federation, we can do out of our product. And now the last one, which is exploding for us, is enterprises are building one-touch apps, iOS, Android, etc., for their users, because users love it. It's easy to use, all that kind of stuff. It may be fumbled too much on the browser, on the actual mobile device. Fantastic. Wouldn't it be cool if someone could apply the IdP and one more concept of WAM, the Web Access Management concept, to these apps? That is, these native mobile apps, without rooting the device, without putting on an MDM, without whatever, can't we just distribute apps and then have it abstracted in authentication and then the identity sent back the way you're able to do those other 3 ways? That is exactly what this product does, and that's what's unique about SecureAuth. It combines those other 3 mechanisms which you all have, and now you're being pushed to saying, well, let's develop some native mobile apps. And you're like, yeah, well, I have PCI, I have NCA, I have a lot of HIPAA high tech, and we are being called a lot on that, and that's fun. So with no further ado, my friend Chris, let's give it to you and show a demo to the audience.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
Okay.
So while we're switching the screen over to my screen here, I'm going to talk to you about what I'm going to be showing you here today. What I'm going to be walking you through is SecureAuth as an intelligent IdP. I've got 2 different things to walk you through here. When we're talking about risk assessment in terms of where users coming in from, what does that really mean, and what has traditional IDP been utilized for? Single sign-on to applications, right? This is great. This is right in our toolbox here. We detect internal users coming to services inside or outside of your network. Let's take away the barrier to entry to that application and allow users to get federated single sign-on access into these applications. Great. That's really good functionality. But now let's take a walk outside and let's talk about dealing with B2B, B2C, and our B2E employees that are outside of our network. How do we secure access to the same applications? Just walking them through a different way to get access to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go click on a SecureAuth realm, and this can be customized look however you would like your logo, wording, or anything else, translated into the browsers for a selected language. And we've got options here. When Garrett was talking about SecureAuth being an intelligent IDP and talking about two-factor authentication, this is one of the biggest pieces here that I love about it. We've got public and private mode. Let's take away for a second the concept that a user has to get a phone call every time, because it's ridiculous. I don't want to get a phone call every time. I do if I'm at a kiosk, and let's provide that kind of functionality. So public mode means, hey, I'm at a kiosk. I don't want to create a cryptographic credential on this device that's valid for any length of time. When I choose private mode, though, what we're doing is we're giving that user the option to validate their identity with information that's directly from the user store, i.e. Active Directory or Tivoli or whatever we want. And we're saying, great, Chris, we want to validate your identity somehow initially. Right? I don't want to just give a second factor authentication to anybody. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my phone off of mute, and it's going to call me up. It's going to say, hey, Chris, your one-time code is 1234. 8159. Now, when I click submit, I'm going to be prompted for my password. And now I've got the ability to create a cryptographic credential regardless of the device, i.e. a tablet, a phone, a PC, a Mac, doesn't matter to me. Now, this is the beautiful part about an intelligent IDP. I've validated the identity, and now I can federate that session to anything that you want. It's just a different way to get access to the same applications, except now I'm outside of the domain. So I'm walking through SAML, I'm walking through .NET, I may be walking through SharePoint, Juniper. What is it that really differentiates this product from any other two-factor authentication piece just for VPN? I'm going to bring over one more slide. Not really a slide, it's our admin console. This is the unique part about SecureAuth. We've spent time developing standards-based authentication integrations so that we can ensure no matter what the application is that the user is trying to get access to, SecureAuth can validate the identity in the user store that you have, and now we can kind of put wheels on your Active Directory and allow people to get access to the applications that they want to get access to.
And Chris, let me interject here.
This right here.
This is what's fun about the product, and you get this, and the team gets this, and our resellers and partners get this. Standard authentication, Chris, makes you do what? They say, we got the identity. Now it's your problem to attain the identity off the authentication server and then hand it or assert it to the relying party. This post-auth part of the product is what an IDP is supposed to do. It's supposed to assert the identity, right? And these pre-built forms is why this is quantifiable in hours instead of weeks, right?
Yeah, you said it to me years ago in a great way. You said, typical application, two-factor authentication. This piece right here is an exercise left to the reader. And this is where the work really starts. Okay? But this is what's built out inside of SecureAuth. So no matter what the application is, we can quickly deploy the use case to get access to that application.
Yeah. So the fun thing,
thank you, Garrett.
In the audience there, what we did as a company is we had some fun. That was my job when I worked literally for RSA, was to write the code to assert the identity to the applications. So what we did is we hired those guys and built a product, not just from RSA, but people that were assertion builders that sent out. And why would you have to do weeks of work every time you do deployment? Why not just quantify it in a single product? And that's exactly what we have done here. that is SecureAuth, the product, is the green columns. It is what your team struggles with all the time. You know, the IT guy says, hey, we got to add this Teleo application or this Google or this Drupal application to the portal. Okay, they start from scratch every time. What we've did is build all these tools in a single product. Build the IDP out, connect it to AD, create the SAML, do the X509, do the SSO as he showed us, federate it, two-factor, log it, the password reset, and the mobile, all built out in one product. JK, why don't you take it home for us? Sorry.
Just to add on one thing to this real quick, Garrett. This is a huge differentiator between us and maybe your local staff. We are recognized as experts in this area. And this is why companies, our customers, choose to use SecureAuth as trusted advisors. We know how this is done. We do this every day for a living.
Yes.
And so we've taken our customers' requirements and to allow us to build that into the product in a good way. So it's a huge difference between homegrown solutions and SecureAuth.
Good point. This is what we've done, and that's why JK is going to take it home and say, great, this is, we've done this across the board for these customers.
Yeah, thanks, Garrett and Chris. And certainly, as I mentioned earlier, oftentimes SecureAuth gets called in on a very tactical, myopic use case. It's replacing in a token-based solution. It's a single sign-on only solution. And as we get into it and have these discussions and showing them the capacity of how you can extend SecureAuth out to your enterprise, to your customers, to your business partners, then it becomes the aha moment. And for instance, the first one that we had was the GSA. And Garrett, they started off with a single sign-on into Google Apps. They didn't want to put their Active Directory credentials in the Google Store. Well, great, we can do that. It ended with, well, before second factor if it comes from an external IP address. They have CAC and TIB cards. We use those and grab those credentials and assert those into their applications. They want to move to Salesforce.com. We use the SAML assertion to go into the Salesforce.com. And we always forget, but we include as well as part of the product the password reset. And I think if everyone knows to do password reset, there's products out there that can do it. They take help desk calls all day long. Just adds to the business case, adds to the ROI, TCO, and things like that. You can look throughout the list on different customers, and one is Dish Networks. Dish, again, started with a simple two-factor to a Cisco ASA, ended with a SAML assertion into their customer base so that they can look at their movies off their mobile device. And so now we're taking the B to E, which is the thousands and tens of thousands of employees. Now we're reaching to the millions, the millions, the millions. And so we start taking traditional authentication in a small context and expanding it out to your audience, to your employees, to your customers, to your business partners, and that's where we're seeing the value. And as we said in the demo here earlier about mobile, the mobile is exploding. Well, how can we do authentication and a single sign-on into all your mobile applications? Well, we're doing that today. And again, we can walk through these use cases. Happy to talk to you about some of these success stories we've had and continue to have. Interest of time, we're almost come up to the bottom of the hour. We do have a couple of questions I'd like to get to before we do that. So guys, I got a couple of questions. First question is, how long does it take to turn up your service?
Why don't you take that one, Chris?
Yeah, sure. So we deploy SecureAuth as a hardened appliance. You can put this into your infrastructure. We create load balance and high availability models. Typical integration is less than a day for all these use cases into something like Google Apps or Salesforce or what have you. We also help you with VPN integration and help you guide. We help guide you through everything you need to do to get the service turned up.
Okay, and I hope we answered this during the presentation, but again, if you want to add some color, do you support mobile applications?
I'll take that. The answer is an emphatic yes, because I'm sure people drift in and out, and it's all good. Yes, and remember what you're asking. You're asking, when you say mobile applications, you're talking to native app, right? and you're not saying we can do it without directing them through a gateway, without rooting the device, without doing any type of control of the actual device, but do a quantifiable identity assertion and single sign-on from one app to multiple apps. So not only is it a yes, it is an emphatic yes.
Thanks, Gary. We got a bunch of questions around other companies that may do a component of what SecureAuth do. So I'm gonna ask one large question, Garrett and Chris, you can take them individually.
Sure.
So how do you compare to Ping, Okta, ADSF? Those are three of the six that I saw. So, but again, how do we compare to some of these companies out there that are in maybe a single sign-on only space or an authentication only space?
What I'm doing is to help us answer this question, and we can take it one by one, is bringing up the funnel. And why we do this is because this is what Chris and I were in architectural meetings. What do you need to do? I got to take this identity from here. I got to then apply this authorization. I got to do authentication. And by the way, I need these three resources. The other products you have mentioned, be it I heard Ping, heard ADFS too. Yeah, they can help you down here. But as Chris intelligently said, exercise left to the reader up to here. Start taking your own bundled of authentication products and start tying this part to that part. Not that I know any hackers, but hackers don't attack here, and they don't even attack the SAML assertion. They attack here, where the identity transfer comes in. Now, this product has been extensively tested, and it passed some amazing audits to get where JK was showing. And it's because we self-contain the identity and then secure it through the identity lifecycle. That's where your hacks are occurring in the transfer between here. So to answer the question, yes, Ping does parts of what we do. The ADFS does the assertion part, but the combination of the identity lifecycle and the access management solution is exactly where we are unique and went out. And Chris, I'll let you add to that.
Yeah, we deal with competitors every day, and we don't have any direct competitor. We have competitive solutions where they have to bring in multiple solutions to compete against SecureAuth. So what I mean by that is, we come in and we do two-factor authentication onto an F5 APM. Oh, by the way, let's do single sign-on out to all the cloud applications. Let's do mobile applications. So this is an umbrella. What you're seeing, this funnel right here, is replicated any number of times you want on your SecureAuth appliances. This is not just, let's set up an appliance to do two-factor onto Google Apps. This is a realm, and this can be replicated, and you have different use cases. Also, we're not a professional services-driven organization. So when I talk about we're turning services up in a day, that means no lengthy 6-month plus engagements that go above and beyond the cost of the actual product. Also, our support for all of these other protocols. Some of these other solutions that you mentioned don't support half of the protocols that we support. So I'll leave it at that. We go toe to toe all the time with these guys.
All right, well, thank you, Chris. And we're beyond our half hour, so those that have asked questions will respond to you in an email here by the end of today. And just to echo what Chris is saying, oftentimes we get in these RFP processes, and we compete against 2 or 3 different companies to solve the same problem. And one point about the integration services, as SecureAuth can deploy, it is a product. So a lot of the stuff is drop down. So you're looking at hours versus days and weeks and things of that nature. So you look at saving some money there as well.